Hi. My name is Alice Monroe. I'm 66 years old, and I haven't slept through the night in over a decade. That's not a complaint. Just a fact. Sleep, like a lot of things, gets more fragile with age. Some nights, my body jerks awake before dawn like it's checking if I'm still here. Most mornings, I wake up not because I'm rested, but because my bones have had enough of lying still. This morning, it was 5:45 when I opened my eyes. Same time as yesterday. I lay there a few minutes longer, listening. No footsteps yet. No pots clanging. Just the faint sound of ferry horns down from Commencement Bay, and the creak of the old pine tree brushing against my window. I live alone. Or rather, I used to. Now it's me, my son Nathan, his wife Brianna, and their two kids, Eva and Theo, stacked into a 3-bedroom apartment on the 10th floor of a building just outside Tacoma. It used to feel spacious. These days, it feels like everyone's breathing the same air, and I'm the only one holding mine in. I sat up slowly, both hands gripping the edge of the bed. My joints hate the morning, especially when it's cold, and Tacoma mornings are always cold. I slipped my feet into my wool slippers and stared at the floor for a second. Gray carpet. Scuffed baseboards. A tiny piece of Eva's glitter sticker stuck under the dresser. Everything familiar. Everything slightly off. When we bought this place in '89, Joseph said the view alone was worth it. I remember him leaning on the windowsill, pointing out toward the sound. You can see the whole bay on a clear day, he said. That first year, we painted the walls ourselves. I still remember the almond white paint running down his forearm. He passed 5 years ago. Sudden stroke. Sometimes I still wake thinking I'll find him in the kitchen, making eggs with too much salt. I pulled on my cardigan, the one with the elbow patches, and opened the door quietly. The hallway was dark. No one else up yet. I always make sure I'm first. The kitchen smelled faintly of last night's garlic bread and Brianna's diffuser oils, lavender and something sharp I can never name. I turned on the stove and filled the kettle with filtered water. It hissed louder than it should. I winced. This kettle's older than Theo. On the counter sat my tin of chamomile tea. I bought it 2 years ago from a tiny herbal shop downtown that closed during COVID. It's my one indulgence. Brianna drinks espresso pods from a gleaming machine that growls like a motorcycle. She calls my tea retirement water. While the kettle warmed, I reached for the ceramic mixing bowl. Blue with a crack down one side. I started whisking batter for my ginger cardamom waffles. That's our Saturday thing. I've been making them since Nathan was Theo's age. Joseph loved them crispy on the edges, soft in the center. I still use the same recipe, scribbled on a napkin, faded ink and all. I don't know why I keep doing it. They don't ask for it. They don't thank me either. But habits are strange. Sometimes they're the only thing left standing when everything else collapses. Maybe I make waffles because it's the one ritual that still feels like mine. A way to hold on. To pretend we're still a family, not just housemates passing in a shared hallway. The hallway floor creaked. I didn't need to look. It was Theo. 13, tall for his age, all knees and headphone cords. His hood was up. He didn't say a word, just sat at the kitchen table, fingers tapping something fast on his tablet. I placed the waffle iron on the counter and waited for the green light. Morning, Theo, I said, my voice soft. He didn't respond. But he didn't leave either. I used to take him to the arboretum when he was little. Showed him how moss grows only on one side of the tree. Now he doesn't meet my eyes. Doesn't speak unless I ask twice. But I've stopped taking it personally. Silence, I've learned, isn't always absence. Sometimes it's armor. He's still here. That's something. Steam whistled from the kettle. I poured the water, watched it darken the flowers in my mug, and breathed in. You ever feel like you're shrinking in your own home? Like you're slowly folding yourself smaller just to fit around other people's lives? Because I do. Every day. And this morning, I had no idea that by next week, I'd be fighting just to keep the one room left with my name on it. But I felt something. A shift. Like the floor beneath me had started to tilt, just a little. And I knew it wouldn't stop. By the time the waffles were browning, Eva walked into the kitchen. She always moved fast, like she was late for something, even when she wasn't. Hair tied up in a half bun, cheeks already brushed with color, a canvas tote slung over one shoulder. 17, and already carrying the weight of a world that hadn't even arrived yet. She didn't say good morning. Just opened the fridge, scanned the shelves like a detective looking for clues. Did you see my gray hoodie? She asked, shutting the fridge without grabbing anything. I looked over my shoulder. The one with the stitched fox on the sleeve? She nodded. I hung it up after laundry yesterday. Should be in your closet, second shelf. She frowned. It's not there. It might have fallen behind. Check the laundry basket in the hallway. Sometimes I forget to fold everything. She was already halfway down the hall before I finished the sentence. I poured batter for the next waffle, trying to ignore the tightness in my chest. We used to talk more. She'd sit on the counter as I cooked, legs swinging, asking me about the human body, about hospital calls, about the time I delivered a baby in a parking lot. Now our words were task-based. Functional. Clean. A minute later, she came back holding the hoodie, a sheepish smile on her face. Found it. You were right. I raised an eyebrow, not unkindly. I usually am. She came over, kissed me on the cheek, and snagged half a waffle straight off the iron. That's still hot, I warned, but she waved me off and took a bite. You should open a food truck, Grandma. Sell these to college students. I smiled at that. I'd heard it before, from Joseph, then from Nathan when he was still a teenager with dreams too big for Tacoma. You heading to that vet clinic again today? I asked. Yeah. Saturday shift. We're doing wound care on stray cats. She said it casually, but her eyes lit up. She's always had that glow when it came to animals. Ever since Joseph gave her a beat-up book on North American wildlife for her 10th birthday. She carried it everywhere. Slept with it for months like it was sacred. I still remember the day she declared she was going to become a veterinarian. Her dad laughed. Said we'd better start saving up. I told her she didn't need savings. Just determination. And that she had in spades. Don't forget to wear gloves, I reminded her. And double knot your laces this time. She grinned. Noted. She was gone before the waffle iron clicked again. The door shut behind her with a soft thud. I stared at the space where she'd just been. Still warm from her presence. Sometimes, I wonder what it would have been like if Joseph had lived to see her grow into this person. He would have bragged about her to every nurse at the ER. Called her Doc before she even got her degree. Instead, it's just me here now. Watching. Remembering. It was different before. This apartment, same walls, same windows, used to feel like a shared heartbeat. Joseph and I bought it when Tacoma was still affordable, when our combined salaries could stretch across decades. I was on call at the trauma unit. He ran a small repair shop near Proctor. We saved every penny. Skipped vacations. Bought second-hand furniture. Painted the walls ourselves, one room at a time. Almond cream, because it reflected the light. We added a second-hand piano to the living room even though neither of us played. Said it made the place feel cultured. And when Nathan was little, he used to bang on the keys like he was scoring a movie in his head. Joseph never told him to stop. The hallway used to smell like paint thinner and pine. Now it smells like Brianna's eucalyptus spray and whatever frozen dinner Theo leaves in the microwave too long. But what hurts most isn't the change. It's how easily they treat this place like it's always been theirs. Maybe I let it happen. After Joseph died, I kept going through the motions. The work shifts, the groceries, the monthly checks. When Nathan lost his job and asked to move in, just for a little while, I didn't hesitate. Of course I said yes. He was my son. What else was I supposed to say? They sold their house. Moved in with promises of temporary. 1 year, they said. 2 at most. That was 3 years ago. And slowly, the shape of home started shifting. Brianna replaced the curtains. Rearranged my spice rack. Switched the shower mat. At first, I laughed. Said nothing. Then I started noticing her things spreading like ivy. Into my closets. My cabinets. My time. Nathan stayed quiet through it all. He's always been like that. Conflict averse. But silence isn't neutral. It tilts the balance. I'm not trying to paint myself as some kind of martyr. I know I've made mistakes. Maybe I was too soft. Maybe I believed too much in the power of keeping peace. But peace without respect is just quiet surrender. And lately, I've started to wonder what I'm still surrendering for. Because you can share space. You can share love. But when you start giving away pieces of yourself just to avoid tension, one day you wake up and realize there's not much left to give. The waffle iron beeped again. I placed the last batch on a ceramic plate and set it on the table. Poured maple syrup into a glass dish. Wiped the counter like I always do. Clean. Precise. Controlled. But something inside me felt messy. Unfolded. Unsettled. And I had no idea yet how close I was to finally saying enough. The kitchen was clean. That's something I've held on to. No matter how tired I am, I wash every dish before bed. I don't like waking up to dirty sinks or crusted pans. Order feels like the only thing I still control. When I finished wiping down the counter, I heard the door down the hall creak open. Nathan's always been quiet in the mornings, but Brianna moves like she wants the whole apartment to notice. I could tell from the pace of her steps it wasn't going to be a pleasant entrance. She showed up in the doorway wearing a beige cashmere robe and that expression she saves for things that annoy her. Eyes sharp. Arms crossed. Her blonde hair pulled back so tight it made her face look carved. "Alice," she said, skipping over any good morning. "Did you move my serum again?" Serum. She never called it lotion or cream. Always serum. Like it belonged in a lab. Like touching it without permission was a violation of international law. "I wiped down the shelf yesterday," I said calmly. "Everything should be where it was." "It's not." "The vitamin C one. In the orange bottle." I reached for the spatula, flipping the last waffle. "Check your nightstand. You sometimes move things when you do your skincare routine in the bedroom." She narrowed her eyes. "I always keep it in the second drawer. Same place. And now it's not there." Behind me, I heard Theo snort. Quiet but unmistakable. "Mom," Eva called from the hallway, her voice louder than necessary. "Your serum's on the nightstand. I saw it there this morning." Brianna didn't thank her. Just turned and walked out. The smell of her citrus-heavy perfume lingered after she was gone, a mix of lemon peel and unspoken criticism. I set the waffles down on the table next to the maple syrup, arranged neatly. There's something about presentation, even when no one cares. Nathan came in just as I was washing the pan. He looked tired. Gray at the temples, even though he was only 43. His t-shirt clung to him slightly from sleep sweat. Still the same boyish slouch. Still mine. "Morning, Ma," he said with a half yawn. "Waffles? You're a saint." He kissed the top of my head without really aiming, already reaching for a mug. I poured him coffee. Medium roast. He never liked it strong. Joseph used to say, "Saturday without waffles isn't Saturday." Nathan used to laugh at that. But now, when I say it, he just nods and changes the subject. Like remembering his father makes the room feel too full. He sat down, forked a piece of waffle, and let out a satisfied sigh. I smiled at the sound. One of the few left that feels honest. Brianna reappeared, holding the serum like it was Exhibit A in a courtroom. It was exactly where Rachel said, she announced, not looking at either of us. But still. Please don't touch my things without asking, Alice. Everyone needs boundaries. I wanted to laugh. But I didn't. I just nodded. Bit my tongue. If I said what I really wanted to, I would have reminded her that my personal space ended when they boxed it up with their belongings. That this apartment is still under my name. That I'm the one paying the last few mortgage checks. That I let them move in when Nathan lost his job and said it would be temporary. It's been over 3 years. Instead, I poured myself more tea and turned to the window. The morning light was soft, casting a warm stripe across the floor. I used to love this view. Now I look at it and feel like I'm peering out of someone else's home. Nathan cleared his throat. Hey, Bree and I are heading to Chris's birthday tonight, he said casually. Could you stay with the kids? Not a question. Just a plan handed to me. I turned and smiled. Of course. I was hoping to start a new book tonight anyway. Quiet sounds lovely. Great. He reached for his coffee. Brianna opened the fridge and pulled out one of her Greek yogurts. By the way, she added, I noticed you used my shampoo again. The French one. I looked at her. Steady. Calm. I didn't touch it, I said. She shrugged. Well, it's lower than it was. Just saying. I didn't argue. There's no point. I'll be more careful, I said. She nodded like a manager checking off a complaint. Then sat next to Nathan and started scrolling her phone while they discussed traffic routes to the party. I rinsed my teacup. The water ran warm over my hands. I dried it slowly, then left the kitchen without a word. Passing Theo's room, I heard the muffled sound of game music. He'd slipped back in right after breakfast. His door was slightly ajar. I peeked inside. He sat hunched over his gaming laptop, fingers moving fast. Shoulders tense, mouth set in a hard line. His bangs hung in his face, and he didn't flinch when I called his name. Theo, sweetheart, I said gently. Would you like to go for a walk later? It's nice out. He pulled his headphones halfway off. I can't. There's a tournament. Online team match. Can't let them down. I nodded. Okay. Maybe another time. He gave a half smile. Maybe. Then the headphones went back on. We used to walk every Saturday. I'd point out birds, name plants, tell him ambulance stories. He loved them. Now, he chooses pixels over presents. But I don't blame him. This place is tense. And children are sponges. They feel it all. In my room, I sat back on the edge of the bed. The noise of the apartment faded. Just the hum of the fridge down the hall. The distant murmur of a neighbor's TV. My knees ached. I reached into the nightstand and pulled out an old photo album. Wiped the dust off the corner. Wedding pictures. Nathan's first bath. Joseph laughing with cake on his nose. Eva in a bee costume. Theo in a stroller, gripping my finger tight. We used to be a family. Now we're just people in rooms. With doors that never quite close. And silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that piles up. The kind that presses on your ribs when no one's watching. And still, I stayed quiet. But not for much longer. It started with something small. It always does. I was reaching for the sugar jar when Brianna's voice shot out behind me. Clipped. Sharp. Alice. Again? I turned, confused. She stood in the doorway of the bathroom, holding a white jar in one hand. Her face unreadable but tight around the eyes. You reorganized the drawer. I blinked. I just wiped down the counter. Everything went back where it was. No, she snapped. Not everything. My collagen bomb's on the left now, and I keep it on the right. Next to my retinol. I told you that. I looked at the jar in her hand. Gold lid. No label. One of 6 near-identical creams she kept in neat rows, like a beauty display at Nordstrom. I didn't move it on purpose, I said. I was just cleaning. Maybe I mixed them up. Brianna rolled her eyes, not bothering to hide it. This is the 3rd time this month, Alice. These aren't just lotions. They're part of my routine. And I can't keep redoing things just because you don't respect boundaries. She said it calmly. Too calmly. Like she'd practiced the line in her head. Something caught in my throat. I swallowed it. I thought about the morning I scrubbed that sink. The way the faucet squeaked. How I wiped the drawer pulls, polished the mirror. I even folded the hand towel with the stitched border facing out, just how she liked it. And still, not enough. Behind me, the waffle iron beeped. From the kitchen, Theo said nothing. I could hear him chewing slowly, the scrape of a fork against ceramic. Eva had already left for her shift. Nathan was still in the shower. The apartment felt like a stage mid-performance. I didn't know my line. I'm sorry, I said. I won't touch anything next time. She looked at me for a long second, then nodded once. That would be best. She turned and left, the jar still in her hand. Her perfume lingered in the narrow hallway. Tangerine and sandalwood. I used to like it. I stood frozen for a moment. Then went back to the stove and flipped the last waffle, even though no one would eat it. My hands shook a little. Funny how people don't yell anymore. They correct you, like you're a child who keeps getting the rules wrong. I used to run trauma drills in the middle of freeway pileups. Gave orders with blood on my gloves and a busted radio. I've pulled people from burning cars. Delivered twins in an elevator during a blackout. My voice never shook then. But this soft correction. It made something inside me flinch. Because it wasn't about the bomb. It was about being in the way. About being tolerated. And I'd started to feel it everywhere. The way Nathan never quite looked up from his phone when I spoke. How the TV volume crept higher every evening, drowning out anything I might say. The invisible way I had to move through the apartment, careful not to take up too much space. Too much sound. Too much air. You ever wonder when your presence becomes a burden? Not by action. Just by existing. I sat down at the table, pushed a waffle onto a plate, and poured syrup. The syrup moved slowly, sticky and silent. Like the days here. Theo had disappeared back into his room, headphones already back on. I thought about knocking. But what would I say? That I needed a minute of company? That his silence felt safer than the rest of the house? I didn't move. In the background, the news played low from the living room TV. Something about a fire on the interstate. A familiar voice, too calm for the tragedy on screen. I used to be that voice. I used to know what to do. When Joseph passed, I kept telling myself I was still strong. That I could hold this family together. That letting them move in was the right thing. And maybe it was, at first. But now, I wasn't so sure. Because slowly, without anyone saying it outright, I'd become something to manage. A soft inconvenience. A houseplant no one wanted to water but felt guilty throwing out. I cut into the waffle. Ate a bite. It tasted like nothing. In that moment, I remembered something Joseph once told me. We were fighting about Nathan's teenage rebellion. About curfews and consequences. I had said, maybe if we give in a little, he'll meet us halfway. Joseph had looked at me and said, Ally, if you keep bending to keep peace, One day you won't recognize your own spine. Back then, I thought he was being harsh. But this morning, I looked around the kitchen. At the spotless counters. The empty chairs. The jar of jam no one ever touched. And I felt it. The absence of my spine. It wasn't gone. Just misplaced. Buried beneath years of quiet, of yes, of I'll just make do. The bomb incident was minor. Trivial even. But it pierced something. Not because of what she said. But because I didn't say anything back. That's when I knew. The small hurts weren't random. They were routine. And I had let them become normal. That's the part that hurt most. Not her tone. Not the jar. But me. How quietly I'd stepped aside. How long I'd been doing it. And how easily they assumed I always would. Late afternoon light poured into the kitchen in long golden strips. The kind of light that makes everything look a little too quiet. I had just come back from the market, my canvas tote sagging with groceries, when I heard voices from the back bedroom. The door was mostly closed, but not latched. I froze at the edge of the hallway. Nathan's voice first. Low. Strained. 10,000, Bree. I didn't think it'd go that far. Her reply hit like a slap. 10,000? That was everything. Our whole savings. You said you stopped. It was just a few trades, he said. They were trending. I thought I could flip it fast. Crypto. I should have known. There was a pause. I stood still, one hand gripping the strap of the grocery bag. I could feel my pulse in my fingers. You told me you were done, Brianna said, her voice shaking now. You swore. After the last mess with the betting app. After your mother had to cover the insurance gap. I didn't want to worry anyone, Nathan said. Quieter. Brianna laughed. It was hollow. No humor. You didn't want to worry anyone? So you just dumped our future into some idiot's podcast stock tips and crossed your fingers? Great plan, Nathan. I was trying to fix it, he mumbled. You're always trying to fix it, she said. With more losses. The air in the hallway was thick. My bag started slipping from my shoulder, but I didn't adjust it. I barely breathed. Nathan spoke again, slower this time. I was gonna ask Mom for a loan. Just until. Don't you dare, Brianna snapped. We already live in her apartment. Eat her groceries. She watches our kids. What more do you expect her to give up for you? I swallowed hard. The groceries were getting heavy. My arm burned. I thought you wanted to move out, she continued. That we were saving for a deposit. That this whole sharing space with your mother setup was temporary. That I wasn't going to spend another winter tiptoeing around her collection of 1980s record covers. I do want out, Nathan said, almost begging. This was supposed to be a shortcut. Silence. Then something softer, but worse. I can't believe I married someone this reckless. I stepped back. Slowly. Quietly. The bag of carrots in the tote shifted with a dull thud. $10,000. Gone. On crypto. Or whatever scheme he had read about this time. I thought he'd learned his lesson after the last disaster. I thought they were finally stable. And he lied. Again. I turned to the kitchen, set the groceries on the counter, and stared out the window for a second. The sky was soft pink, clouds like cotton. Someone downstairs was grilling. I could smell rosemary and smoke. Everything looked normal. But inside me, something cracked. You ever tell yourself a lie so many times that it starts sounding like love? That's what I'd done. Over and over. Told myself I was helping. Supporting. Keeping the family together. But the truth was uglier. I had been covering. Enabling. taking the hit so Nathan didn't have to look in the mirror too long. I heard the bedroom door swing open. I turned just in time to see Brianna storm down the hallway, jacket already in hand. Her eyes were red, but dry. She spotted me at the sink. "Oh. You're back," she said, voice clipped. "I just walked in. I'm going out. Don't wait for me for dinner." She didn't explain where. Didn't ask if I was okay. Just left. Door slamming hard enough to rattle the coat hooks. A moment later, Nathan shuffled in. Shoulders hunched. Hair uncombed. Like a teenager who got caught cheating on a test. He didn't sit. Just hovered by the table. "You heard?" he asked. I nodded. Quiet. Tired. He ran a hand through his hair. "Didn't look at me." "I didn't mean to lose it," he said. "I really thought." 10,000, I whispered. "Nathan, how?" He finally met my eyes. Just for a second. And in that second, I didn't see the man with 2 kids and a job and a mortgage he didn't pay. I saw the boy who once smashed a window with a baseball and told me it was the wind. "I was trying to fix things," he said. "Make it easier for everyone. I thought I had a system." "You thought wrong," I said. He looked like he might cry. Or bolt. Or collapse. "I'll get it back. I swear." I didn't answer. Because promises don't mean much when you've used them all up. And Nathan had used every last one. "Go rest," I told him. "Dinner'll be ready in an hour." He hesitated. Then nodded and left. I stood there a long time. The groceries untouched. My tea cold. Lauren's words echoed in my head. "You let them walk all over you." She was right. I had. And now, this. Not just hurt. Not just disrespect. This was betrayal. From my own son. And I didn't even feel angry. Just empty. Like the part of me that used to believe in him had finally gone quiet. Like something inside had finally given up the fight. And I didn't know yet if that was grief. Or the start of something else. The next morning, I asked Lauren to meet me for coffee. No explanation. Just a text at 7:12 a.m. Her reply came 3 minutes later. "Of course. The usual place?" I nodded to the screen. The usual was Wild Fern Cafe, tucked behind the post office on 9th Street. It used to be a bookstore before the owners converted it during the pandemic. Now it smelled like burnt espresso, cinnamon scones, and old paperbacks. I arrived early. The sidewalk was still damp from last night's drizzle. A man in a neon vest swept fallen cherry blossoms off the curb. I wore my navy sweater with the stretched sleeves and black jeans that no longer fit like they used to. Lauren walked in 10 minutes later. Gray curls tucked under a floppy canvas hat, leather bag slung across one shoulder. She always looked slightly eccentric, like someone who just returned from a poetry retreat in Oregon. She gave me a tight hug. Her perfume, lemongrass and something floral, lingered on my cheek. We sat by the window. "You look tired," she said gently. "I am." A waitress came over. I ordered the chamomile. Lauren got her usual, something with turmeric and oat milk that I could never remember the name of. For a while, we didn't talk. We just sat, sipping, listening to the clatter of ceramic and the low hum of conversation around us. Then she asked, "What happened?" I looked down at my hands. They were steady today. But something in my chest wasn't. I heard them fighting. Nathan and Brianna. He lost 10 grand on crypto. Lauren's eyebrows lifted. And? He planned to ask me for more. She leaned back. Crossed her arms. "I see. I feel like I don't live in my own home anymore," I said quietly. "I pay the bills. I clean the floors. But I'm treated like a guest. Or worse. Like background noise. She didn't interrupt. I don't even recognize him some days. He looks at me and there's no warmth. Just obligation. Or guilt. I can't tell the difference anymore. Lauren stirred her drink slowly. Ally, she said, using the name only she still used. You've been too kind for too long. That kindness turned into silence. And they took it as permission. I nodded. But what can I do? I whispered. They live there. The kids are there. I don't want to tear it all apart. Then you'll keep shrinking, she said. Until one day, you'll disappear altogether. Still alive. Still paying the mortgage. But gone. Her words sat heavy. But true. I looked out the window. The sun had broken through. A young couple walked by, holding hands, laughing at something private. I used to laugh like that. With Joseph. In grocery aisles. At gas stations. In the middle of funerals. You remember when I got that promotion? I asked Lauren. Back in 2001? She smiled. You beat out 2 men and a Navy vet. I laughed softly. Joseph bought me a lemon pie and called me a legend. And I remember thinking, maybe being strong isn't about volume. Maybe it's about presence. Lauren set her cup down. You're still strong, she said. But strength doesn't mean putting everyone else first. Sometimes it means reclaiming what's yours. I nodded. Slowly. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a notebook. The spiral kind with a red cover. I opened to the page with scribbled calculations. 3 mortgage payments left, I said. Then it's fully mine. Lauren's eyes didn't widen. She just smiled. Like she'd known it all along. They don't know that, do they? No. You should remind them. I didn't answer. But I folded the notebook shut with care. We walked out together. The air was warmer now. A breeze picked up the scent of fresh bread from the bakery next door. Lauren reached into her bag and handed me a small wrapped package. What's this? I asked. A bar of soap. Eucalyptus and charcoal. For clarity. I laughed. Lauren. Just take it, she said. Next time you stand up for yourself, you'll want to feel clean. I tucked it into my purse. When I got home, the apartment was quiet. Theo's door was cracked open. Eva was out. I went into my room and opened my filing cabinet. Found the folder marked property. Inside were copies of the deed, statements from the bank, a note Joseph had written on a yellow sticky years ago. This place is ours, Ally. Always. I sat on the bed. Held that note in my hand. You ever have a moment where your body is still but your whole self shifts? That was me then. Not angry. Not even hurt. Just done. And in that stillness, I felt something flicker back on. Not rage. Resolve. Because silence is a slow kind of erosion. You think you're just keeping peace. But all the while, your foundation is wearing thin. I had 3 payments left. 3. And then I'd remind them. Kindly, if I could. Firmly, if I had to. Because I wasn't just someone's mother or someone's burden. I was the owner of this home. And I was done apologizing for it. 2 days later, I stepped into the bank of Puget Sound. Not the main branch. The small one on Park Avenue with dusty blinds and an old man at the front desk who still used a landline. I hadn't been inside in years. Most things were paperless now. But I needed this to be real. I needed to look someone in the eye. The woman who helped me was named Letitia. Hair in a tight puff, mauve sweater, gold hoop earrings. She called me ma'am even after I told her not to. But she smiled like she meant it. I just want to confirm the mortgage balance, I told her. And get a clear end date. She typed. Clicked. Then printed a sheet and slid it across the desk. I stared at the number. $3,784. 3 payments. Less than the cost of Brianna's spa packages or Nathan's last phone upgrade. Letitia watched me quietly. You've done well, she said softly. It's rare now. Owning a place outright. I nodded. My throat felt thick. I folded the paper carefully, as if it might tear from disrespect. Would you like us to notify you when the final payment clears? She asked. Yes. Email and print. I left the bank with the paper tucked into my purse like a passport. The walk back home was cold but dry. I passed a florist selling sunflowers and late-season tulips. I almost bought one. Then didn't. Instead, I kept walking until I reached Levine and Daughters Legal on 12th. Mr. Levine was 82. Half-blind and still sharper than most men half his age. He had handled Joseph's will. Wore the same corduroy blazer with leather elbow patches every time. He greeted me like I'd never left. Alice Monroe, he said, standing slowly. Still standing upright. I'm impressed. I brought cookies, I said, handing him a Tupperware from my bag. Snickerdoodles. You liked those. He grinned. They're the reason I still practice. His office hadn't changed. The bonsai tree on the corner of his desk was bigger now. His nameplate had faded. The filing cabinet was still missing one handle. I sat across from him, fingers laced. I need you to review the deed, I said. Make sure everything's still under my name. That there are no surprises. He raised an eyebrow. Expecting a challenge? Not yet, I said. But I want to be ready when it comes. He opened the file I handed him. Skimmed it with a magnifying lens. All clean, he said after a moment. You're sole owner. No liens. No claims. You're rock solid. I exhaled. It felt louder than it was. He leaned back, folded his hands. Want to draft a living trust? Might make the next conversation easier. Not yet, I said. I wasn't there yet. Not to the point of dividing. Just protecting. Before I left, he handed me a copy of the deed, stamped and signed. Ink matters, he said. When memories start blurring. Outside, the sun had dipped behind the buildings. I pulled my coat tighter and walked home slowly. Every step lighter than the one before. I had answers now. Proof. Not just in paper. In posture. In breath. When I got home, Brianna was in the kitchen on a call, talking fast about something related to wellness branding. Nathan was in the living room, tapping at his laptop. Theo had music playing in his room, some kind of lo-fi beat that sounded like someone whispering into cotton. No one asked where I'd been. I hung up my coat. Made tea. Opened my bedroom door and shut it behind me. Then I pulled out a worn spiral notebook. At the top of the page, I wrote in bold ink. Plan. Underneath, I listed 3 bullet points. Just 3. But they were mine. I sat back. Looked around the room. Still filled with my things, my energy. My air. This was not a war. I didn't want to fight. But I wouldn't be stepped over again. Later that night, I overheard Nathan ask Brianna if she wanted to look at houses again. Somewhere closer to the city. She laughed. With what money? He didn't answer. And I didn't interrupt. Because they still didn't know I was preparing. And I wasn't ready to show them yet. But I will. You ever watch your own life like a movie in slow motion? That's how it felt. Like the moment before the plot twists. The second before someone stands up from the dinner table and finally tells the truth. I wasn't angry. I was clear. And clarity? It's louder than rage. It started the way most shifts do. Quiet. Uneventful. Almost ordinary. A Thursday morning. Cloudy, light drizzle. The kind of weather that makes you delay errands just to avoid wet sleeves. I stayed in my room longer than usual. Drank my tea slowly. No TV. No music. Just the sound of pipes groaning through the walls and the soft tick of the clock Joseph had hung above our door 25 years ago. I had the envelope on the dresser. Manila. Unlabeled. Inside, 2 pages. Folded once, clean. The edges were sharp. I hadn't sealed it yet. I just kept looking at it. Not out of doubt. Out of disbelief that I'd come this far without breaking. You ever have one of those moments where your body feels calm but your chest buzzes like a live wire? That was me. The house was alive with the usual rhythm. Footsteps. The whir of the microwave. Someone's electric toothbrush clicking off. They didn't know anything was different. And I didn't want them to know. Not yet. I opened my closet. Pulled out the cardigan with the missing button. The one Joseph loved because it made me look like a professor in a detective novel. I smoothed it out. Slipped it on. Went to the kitchen. Brianna was there. Hair twisted up with a claw clip, wearing her silk robe even though it was noon. She was standing by the fridge, scrolling on her phone with one hand, sipping green juice from a glass bottle with the other. She looked up when I walked in. Her eyes scanned me. Paused on the envelope in my hand. But she didn't ask. Just said, "There's almond milk if you're out." I nodded. Thanks. I poured myself some water. Sat at the table. Theo shuffled past a minute later, hoodie up. Didn't speak. His headphones blinked blue under the hood. I watched him go. The way he never looked fully awake anymore. Sometimes I wanted to grab his hand and ask, "Are you okay in there?" But I didn't. Not yet. Nathan came in 20 minutes later, face flushed from whatever video call he was on. He kissed the top of Brianna's head. Then said to me, mid-swipe on his phone, "Hey Ma, can we talk sometime tonight?" Something about the mortgage came up. My pulse didn't change. I didn't flinch. "Sure," I said. "After dinner." He nodded, already walking away. And just like that, I knew I had to do it before he could. I couldn't let him talk first. Not this time. The rest of the afternoon passed like smoke. I did the dishes. Folded a load of towels. Reorganized my sewing box for no reason at all. There's something about small order that soothes you when you're planning to disrupt everything. By evening, the house had gone still. Dinner was leftovers. Reheated stew and a salad thrown together with bagged greens. Everyone ate in silence. Except Brianna, who scrolled on her phone with one hand and ate with the other. She had mastered the art of being present and absent at once. Theo disappeared again before I could ask him to stay. Eva texted she was eating out after her shift. Nathan lingered. I watched the way his eyes danced between me and his plate. He was waiting. Trying to time his question. But I stood up first. Took my glass. My plate. And the envelope. "Can I talk to you both?" I said. Brianna looked up. Blinked. Nathan froze. "Now?" he asked. I nodded. We moved to the living room. Brianna curled up on the love seat, legs tucked under her. Nathan sat on the edge of the couch. I stayed standing. I held the envelope with both hands. They waited. I didn't say anything yet. I let the silence stretch. I'd learned something recently. Sometimes silence has shape. It can press against people. Make them squirm. Show you where the cracks are. Nathan finally cleared his throat. "What's going on?" That's when I set the envelope down on the coffee table. Softly. The way you place something breakable. I need to talk to you, I said. Both of you. About the house. And what comes next? Brianna sat straighter. Nathan blinked. And I knew they felt it too. The shift. The warning. The beginning of the end of pretending. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't angry. But they heard it. The stillness. And they finally understood. I hadn't just made waffles this week. I had made up my mind. They both stared at the envelope like it might explode. Nathan leaned forward. What is this? I didn't answer right away. I sat down instead. Hands in my lap. Posture straight. My tea still warm on the side table. I hadn't touched it. It's a copy of the deed, I said. The mortgage will be paid off in 6 weeks. After that, the apartment is mine. Entirely. No cosign. No joint claim. Just me. Brianna shifted. Her jaw clenched. Nathan looked at his knees. I watched them both. No anger. No tremble. Just the quiet kind of clarity that comes after a storm. I'm not bringing this up to shame anyone, I said. I'm saying it now because I need you to hear me while I'm calm. Nathan finally looked up. His voice was soft. Of course. We're listening. I paused. I thought about soft things. Like snow that sinks a roof. Or wind that cuts through brick. I had learned to be soft. But I had never learned to be heard. I've made a decision, I said. I'm setting a date. Brianna raised an eyebrow. A date? To move out, I clarified. By the end of September. Nathan's head snapped toward me. What? I held up a hand. You said it would be temporary. You said you needed a year. I gave you 3. I made space. I stayed quiet. And now I'm reclaiming the space. But, Ma, he started. I'm not throwing you out, I said. I'm giving you time. 3 months is generous. Especially considering you've had 36. Brianna scoffed under her breath. Nathan just needs more time. We've had setbacks. You know that. I do, I said. And I also know you've renovated your entire skincare cabinet but not your budget. Nathan looked down again. His ears were red. I softened, just a little. This isn't punishment, I said. It's boundaries. I'm almost 70. I want to breathe in my own space again. I want to walk into a kitchen that smells like lemon soap, not reheated takeout and tension. I want silence that feels restful. Not tense. They didn't say anything. I pressed forward. I've already met with a financial advisor. I'm switching utilities back under my name only. You'll have through September to find a place and transition. I'll help where I can. But I won't carry the whole load anymore. Nathan opened his mouth. Then closed it. You ever see your own child become a stranger? It's not a snap. It's a slow drift. A look here. A silence there. And then one day, you speak and they blink like you've said something in a language they forgot. I thought you were okay, Nathan whispered. You never said anything. That's the thing, I said quietly. I did. You just didn't listen. Or you didn't believe me when I did. Brianna crossed her arms. What if we can't find something by then? Then you'll do what every adult does, I said. Adapt. It was harsher than I meant. But not untrue. Nathan's voice cracked a little. This feels like betrayal. That word hit me deep. For a second, I almost lost my footing. I breathed in. Out. No, I said. Betrayal is lying about money. Using people's silence like it's consent. This is something else. What is it then? I met his eyes. Accountability. No one spoke for a while. I stood. I'll have the written timeline on the fridge tomorrow. 3 months. After that, this becomes my space again. I picked up the envelope. Held it to my chest. I hope you understand. Brianna stayed silent. Nathan looked like he was still waiting for me to change my mind. But I didn't. You know what surprised me most? I didn't feel guilt. I felt free. Not because it was easy. But because, for the first time in years, I was speaking like I meant it. And they couldn't stop listening. The morning after, no one said much. The silence was heavier than usual, but not sharp. More like the quiet of a house mid-renovation. Dust in the air. Floorboards unsettled. I made coffee like I always do. Ground the beans by hand. Boiled the water on the stove even though we had an electric kettle. Something about waiting for the whistle steadies me. Reminds me I'm here. Still choosing. Nathan came in first. T-shirt wrinkled. Socks mismatched. His eyes puffy, like sleep had been more of a suggestion than a reality. He poured himself a cup. Didn't add sugar. I'm looking at listings, he said. I nodded. Good. A pause. Then softer. I should have started months ago. Maybe years. He didn't look at me. I didn't need him to. Brianna didn't appear until much later. Almost noon. Her robe was replaced by a blouse and slacks. Hair pulled back into a clean bun. Minimal makeup. No perfume. I was slicing pears for a tart. She stood by the fridge. Eva needs a ride to practice tonight. I can take her if you're busy. I looked up. Surprised. Thank you. That'd help. Another pause. Then she looked down at her phone and said, more to the floor than to me, I'm sorry if I made this house feel like it wasn't yours. She didn't wait for a response. Just grabbed a bottle of sparkling water and walked out. I stared at the half-cut pear in my hand. You ever get stunned by something so small, so delayed, that it almost hurts more than the wound itself? That was me. That apology didn't fix anything. But it showed me she saw it. Even a flicker. And that flicker was enough to shift something in the room. By the end of the week, Nathan had sent me a list of 3 possible rentals. One was too far. One was too small. One might work. I said nothing. Just nodded. Theo started eating at the table again. I noticed his headphones stayed off longer. Eva lingered in the kitchen while I cooked. Asked questions. Told me about a friend at school whose parents were separating. She said it like a fact, not a fear. I asked how she felt about everything. She shrugged. Change is weird, she said. But it's not bad. It's just loud at first. I smiled. Smart girl. That Sunday, I lit a candle in the hallway. Eucalyptus and cedar. Joseph's favorite scent. I opened the windows. Let the breeze carry through the rooms. The space felt different. Not peaceful yet. But breathing. I stood in the center of the living room. Alone. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I just stood. This wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't an ending at all. But it was something I hadn't felt in a long time. The beginning of shift. You ever realize you don't need anyone to change before you do? That silence doesn't mean you've lost. Sometimes, it means you've landed. Right where you needed to be. It began after dinner, the first time I looked them both straight in the eye and felt steady. The kitchen was quiet now. Pluto the cat purred at my feet. A soft hum from the range hood. Nathan and Brianna had cleared their plates 5 minutes earlier. Just vegetables, no dessert. I noticed. I held the eviction notice in my hand. Neat print, stamped and dated. A legal document I never thought I'd be posting on my own fridge. They sat opposite me at the table. Brianna in crisp trousers. Hair pulled back with a tortoiseshell clip. Expression unreadable. Coffee cup hugged close. Nathan avoided my gaze. Rubbed his neck, like he'd forgotten how to wear skin. I cleared my throat. I won't repeat everything we discussed, I said. This is the written notice. 30 days. That's the legal requirement. I'm giving you 90. I placed the paper in the middle of the table like a challenge. He reached for it first. You mean it, he said. I do, I said. Brianna finally leaned forward. Voice quiet but sharp. You're really going to kick us out? You move out, I said. Not me. I didn't force it. It was a gentleman's agreement that became a quiet cage. Nathan spoke up then. Voice shaking. Face pale. I'm sorry, Mom. For everything. For lying. For not stepping up. She's my wife. I know that. But I failed you. I paused. Heat of the moment, but I stayed calm. Apologies only count if things change, I reminded him. He nodded, tears in his eyes. Brianna exhaled. Hard. Your help kept us alive. I was wrong to treat you like a guest. Like an obligation. I'm sorry. Her apology hit me differently. Not relief, but recognition. I met her eyes. Clean, honest. Thank you, I said. I took a step closer. You both will get help, I said. I'll list a few contacts for financial counseling, rental agencies, parenting support. Consider it part of the arrangement. Families need more than promises. Her eyes flicked to Nathan's. After a moment, he nodded. I took back the paper slowly, folded it in half. I want you both to feel safe redirecting your lives. But it has to be outside this home. Silence settled. Soft. No raised voices. Just the drone of the fridge and the flush of the dishwasher starting up. You ever think that love becomes obligation when it's not balanced? I asked. They didn't answer. And I didn't need them to. I rose from the table. I left the eviction notice there, folded and waiting. Just like the debt. And the memory of every step I took to get to this moment. I didn't slam the door. I didn't tear up. I didn't gloat. But the calm I felt as I walked back into my bedroom was more powerful than any shout ever could be. Because I didn't just stand up for myself. I stood up for freedom. And they saw it. I didn't expect peace to come so quietly. But it did. On a Wednesday morning, 2 weeks after that final conversation, I woke up to birdsong and the hum of the neighbor's lawnmower. The house was still. No TV blaring in the background. No footsteps racing down the hall. Just the soft light of 7:42 a.m. spilling across the hardwood floor. I wrapped myself in a robe. Cotton. Pale gray. Slightly frayed at the sleeve. It used to belong to Joseph. In the kitchen, the countertop was clear. No forgotten energy drinks. No empty Tupperware. Just my tea kettle and a blue bowl of oranges. I poured water. Watched steam rise. Let it remind me I was still here. Still capable. Still mine. Nathan and Brianna had started packing. Cardboard boxes lined the hallway now. Labeled in thick marker. Books. Bathroom. Kids' toys. It all looked oddly temporary, like they were guests who'd overstayed and finally remembered they had somewhere to be. I didn't gloat. But I also didn't step in. They were learning to move. To shift. To try again. And I was learning how silence, when chosen, feels like power. Later that afternoon, I met Lauren at a little cafe near the lake. It was called Still and Company. A new place. Exposed brick, succulents on the windowsill, and jazz playing soft enough to feel like breathing. She hugged me hard. Ordered me a hibiscus lemonade before I could speak. "You look different," she said. "I feel different." We sat by the window. I told her everything. About the paper on the table. The long pause in Nathan's voice. The small apology in Brianna's. The way even the air in my bedroom had changed. She smiled. "You did the hard thing," she said. "You chose yourself." I stirred the ice in my glass. Watched the lemon wedge float. "You know what's funny?" I said. "For a long time, I thought love was endurance. That if I just stayed quiet enough, giving enough, things would stay whole." Lauren didn't interrupt. "But I've learned," I went on, "sometimes love means stepping away. Saying no. Closing doors. So new ones open for everyone." She touched my hand. Didn't say a word. And I realized I didn't need her to. That night, I sat on the porch with a fleece blanket and a small glass of red wine. The twins were asleep. Brianna had gone to meet a friend. Nathan was working in the bedroom with the door closed. No one needed me in that moment. And it felt strange. Not sad. Just new. You ever have to meet yourself again after years of being needed by everyone else? That's where I am now. Reintroducing myself. To quiet. To books I never finished. To recipes I always meant to try. To music Joseph once danced to in the kitchen with bare feet and a stained apron. I still miss him. Every day. But something about this moment makes me feel close to him again. As if he's saying, "There you are, ally. I knew you'd come back." And maybe I have. Not fully. But I'm on my way. I know now that love doesn't live in silence. It lives in the courage to speak. In the choice to return to yourself, even after you've been lost to the weight of everyone else's needs. Some people might think I was too late. But I don't. Because late is better than never. And I'm here now. Clear. Quiet. Home. So if you're watching this, and you feel invisible, let me ask you this. What would happen if you chose yourself today? Not in anger. Not in guilt. Just, because you're worth it. Because sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is stand in your kitchen, pour your tea, and say, "This space is mine." And mean it.